and most of the people playing StarCraft 2 don't have the anti-mech mentality ingrained from Brood War.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Zerg players specifically actually started figuring out how to beat Terran mech, but it happened like right before the beta went down. I'm thinking like specifically, I know TLO thought of something near the end, and also Slush pulled out some really, really good games against Maka on like the last couple days of the beta that showed some real promise for ZVT mech.
Yeah.
See, I see things from the perspective of a Zerg player, so I know it sounds kind of weird, but just go with... I don't know how mech goes versus Protoss, though. I don't know.
I haven't made it work. I don't think it's a good plan. Like, what I've seen is you go mech, and then you're really slow and immobile, they mass expand, and then they go, like, mass carriers, or, like, void rays, or something weird, and then you're not prepared for it. That's been my experience thus far, trying to mech versus Protoss.
Fair enough. So are there any series that you're particularly proud of, or you thought was really, really fun to play in? Like a
I was really proud of when so Team Liquid Invitational was my first... That was my first invitational tournament, so that was like a big deal for me. I couldn't sleep the night before, I was like super excited. And I had to play versus Noni in the first round. And like I looked at the I think they had like the vote up, the poll, like QXC versus Noni, who's gonna win, and I was reading the posts, and like nobody thought I was gonna win. Nobody thought I was gonna take a game off of him. And then I ended up beating him 2-1. I'm like, that was really cool.
Yeah, that's good. Noni's a very solid player, so that's good.
He did Phoenix stuff. So before that set, I was watching Noni's replays, and so I kind of knew what he was going to do, or I had an idea. Like, I thought he was going to do what those replays were. And sure enough, the first game, he goes, like, mass Phoenix play, and I was totally prepared for it. And then I don't remember what happened the second game. And the third game, I had one of those really cool intuition moments where I'm just like, I started with, it was on Kulas, TVP, and I started with the 2-Rax Marauder pressure. And I was putting the beat down on him, and then Warp Gate finished, and I had to back off. And I overextended myself, which is basically what I always do when I 2-Rax Marauder. It's kind of a problem. And so I fell back, and I put 2 bunkers up at my choke. And then I was just kind of sitting there. And I was really confused, because usually when you do 2-Rax Marauder and you attack the Protoss and then you get beaten back, you get this big counterattack from the Warp Gates coming down your throat. And it never came. And then, like, 5 seconds later, I thought to myself, if I were Noni, what would I be doing? And then I thought of it, and I was like, the rocks. Of course, the rocks. And so I take my Marauder army, I destroy the rocks, run up, and I see the rocks on the other side going down, and sure enough, he was planning to come through my back door. And so what ended up happening is I put my units like off to the side a little bit, and right as his army came up the ramp, I made a semicircle around it and just caught him totally out of position, and went on to take that game. And that was really cool, because I definitely thought I was going to lose.
I think I saw that one. Oh, that was the Team Liquid Invitation. That one was all over the place, I think. I think, what's it called, there was an event during the Team Liquid Invitation that kind of overshadowed a lot of the good plays that happened during it. And a lot of the Team Liquid Invitational wasn't casted, which I thought made it kind of not as strong as like the European one was, or the Altitude one was, but it's still, I did watch the replays. There were some really good games in there. And I really wish more games got casted. So, what's your feeling on the StarCraft 2 scene right now, then? Like, the community?
It's looking pretty good. I'm pretty psyched that we've gotten so many tournaments and so much... There's such an active community, even though the game hasn't been released yet. And this bodes really well for sponsorship. Like, big money tournaments, all kinds of publicity, that kind of stuff. It's pretty exciting. I'm ready for the game to be released. Ish. Right now I'm working, and so it'd be tough once I go back to school. I'll have some more time probably.
Are you excited for things like the idea of the StarCraft 2 OSL and all that?
Anything. I just like big tournaments, star leagues. I want to play against good people. The one thing that I really hope is something is done about cross-realm play, because that's like I think that's the biggest thing holding the scene back. Like people make threads. They're talking about like who's the best Terran or like who's the best Zerg, and like some people have told me that they think I'm the best Terran, but I don't know that because I haven't been able to test myself against the European Terrans. I haven't been able to test myself against the Asian Terrans. Like, I want to do that. I think it'd be really fun. And the tournaments will get bigger if it's international. I feel like that's true. So anything to broaden it, to broaden the player base, to give more cross-region communication seems like a really good thing, and the OSL is a good step towards that.
Yeah, I think that like Blizzard has stated that they're working on it. It's in their sights. But you know, StarCraft 2, there's a lot more packets going back and forth, so it's kind of going to probably be a harder job than it was with Brood War to get international play to work right?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Alright, so another question I got here for you is, how do you practice, like in a typical day?
So part of this depends on whether or not I have a match in the next couple of days, and it also depends on what time it is. Sometimes when I'm at school, I'll finish homework around midnight, and then I'll end up playing all night. I'll like go to sleep at 6 a.m., and at that point, there's usually no one to practice against, so I'll just ladder. Or I'll start watching replays, depending on what it is. So usually late at night is ladder or replays. And then during the day, just playing against whoever's online, mostly for my team. Sometimes I practice with Artosis and Hydra. But the big thing about like my mentality when I practice is always improvement. I'm always looking like whether I'm refining a build and trying to find holes in it or testing a new idea. Every time I play a new game, every time I click find match, every time I click join game, I want something to be different about what I'm doing that's better. And if it's not better, I want to know if it's not better. Like if I think that getting my gas one supply earlier is going to make my build stronger, I want to test that and I want to know for sure. And that kind of stuff gives me the most confidence when I go into these tournaments, so I can really believe and get behind the builds and the strategies that I'm using.
Do you actually? You say you ladder a lot, which is interesting to me because I know that a lot of pro players that I've talked to aren't fans of laddering because they don't get much out of it. Do you get something out of laddering?
So it depends. Like at the beginning of beta, I was definitely getting more out of ladder because I wasn't top tier at that point. Like I was losing on ladder a lot, and I was also winning, but like I was learning more because the people were better relative to me. Recently, what I found is the problem with ladder is they'll reset it, and so it takes like 4 or 5 days to get to the top rankings when you start playing like good unknown people, which I found really useful. Like I'll find people who I've never heard of who are using my builds against me because they've been keeping active in the scene and they've been watching my replays and stuff. Like I'll TVT against myself, and like that's really useful. But what's not useful is playing the 40 games that get my ranking high enough so I don't have to play like lower tier diamond players.
And do you often get, oh my god, it's QXC?
Usually when I get people who recognize me, it's oh shit, this is so unfair. I think that's funny.
See, that's why it's good that I get to be just a platinum player, and I just get to report on StarCraft instead of being expected to be good at it. It's more fun.
Yeah. No pressure.
So, let's just say we have an invisible third person in here who is just getting into StarCraft 2. What would you tell him to do to get started?
The first thing before I was even a focus on the game would be, don't worry about losing. This game has a lot of history behind it. The skill level is extremely high, especially compared to most competitive games. Even the bad people